So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. And today is Friday, and it's the last day of April, April the 30th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Give Michael just a moment to get dialed in. And I was looking up, no, Dr. Tim had to go. I was just trying to look up. Susan, I'm going to turn your microphone on. Can you tell me what the, in the way of mastery, the keys to the kingdom, is that what he was talking about?
Yes, I think so, and I think he said chapter 5, but he was talking about different sections in there, so that might not be right, Jeannie.
Okay. That was interesting. I was just going to look that up. So thank you very much. And Michael's with us now. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Once again, we're honored. We're delighted to have this opportunity to carry on this conversation and take these tools about first century Aramaic forgiveness further and further throughout the globe, making the technology available ultimately to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. So glad to be participating with you and taking it forward. Our reading today from Why Is This Happening to Me Again is from the chapter on ancient wisdom. And we're looking at the fact that the Aramaic language is a language that, frankly, there are things you just can't say in English that you can think in Aramaic. And so what we're looking to do is to get the understanding of what that language says into a form that at least is close to the original process of forgiveness in particular. And recognizing that forgiveness is about removal. Forgiveness isn't about how I'm going to let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. And so we're on page 61, again in the chapter on ancient wisdom, if you're following along in the book. If you don't have a copy of it, you can usually go to Amazon or eBay, since it's out of print, and find a used copy fairly reasonably. And or you can go to our website, download it free in any one of several different languages. So we're talking to Richard about willingness, about the process of release, letting go of processing out those perceptual bits of data that are based in hostility or fear. And so we're talking about the willingness as being the cosmic grease that helps to move easily and quickly through whatever issues need to be worked through. When one stands in tightness and resistance and holding on, then the difficulty of letting go becomes obvious. And moving toward willingness on a mental level, doing things on a physiological level that help to soften and release the tissue structure. You know, when we're all uptight, you know, we're living in what's called a sympathetic nervous state. The sympathetic nervous system is in control, and that's the fight, fright, flight, freeze, or fear posture, and it basically just locks everything up, including, unfortunately, circulation. And so once one starts to soften and let go, oftentimes they start to get in touch with things that they've been tightening, steeling themselves against, and the willingness to embrace those energetic dynamics is what cosmic grease is about. So Richard offers a thought. We've been talking about his parents, and I acknowledge him for moving from a very hard line with them to a softer position of seeing them as humans and, you know, allowing the space for them to be fallible. And he says to me, as in response to some of that conversation, I've heard of changing the past. Is that what I've just done? I offer to him, your forgiveness did not change the past, but it changed a reality in your mind about the past. There is no reason why the pain of old realities should be carried inside of us. Your relief and release is a good example of the successful use of true forgiveness. It is wise to remember a success like this if resistance to change surfaces in the future. Give yourself a pat on the back. Go ahead. Actually pat your back. It's more than a cliche. Intentionally recognizing and emphasizing the positive effects of an action or attitude is known as a positive anchor. When you anchor things through this kind of emphasis, you'll be more inclined to repeat them in the future. I'm kind of sensing what you're saying, says Richard, but it's a little overwhelming. I feel better, but I'm still confused. I don't know why. I'm not sure I quite understand what just happened. Richard leaned over and untied his shoes as he spoke. He stretched his legs out in front of him as he settled back into his seat. Even though he didn't understand everything we just uncovered, he looked more relaxed and comfortable. For the first time since he'd arrived, the lines in his forehead were softening. So Richard, if you haven't been with us, is a character that showed up at Heartland. And he's not a real character, but is a composite of many people that I've worked with over the years. And he's, going through a third divorce, and somebody suggested he drop by and see me at our teaching center in the Ozarks in southern Missouri at Heartland. So he does that. And he shows up kind of reluctantly, but has just that little bit of willingness. And as the story unfolds, we get to see how his willingness unfolds. And what we're seeing right now, what I just described, taking off his shoes, he's sitting back, he's relaxing. He's starting to move from that sympathetic state of fight, fright, flight, fear, into a parasympathetic state where things are starting to open. The breath starts to open, the capillaries start to open, the muscles soften and relax. It's interesting. The only thing that delivers blood to a cell is your capillaries. We hear a lot in the medical world about arteries and veins because they're big enough to do something with, but a capillary is about the 10th the thickness of a hair. Pretty small stuff. No artery or vein ever delivered one molecule of oxygen or one bit of nutrition to a cell. The arteries and veins deliver the oxygen nutrition to the capillary head. And you've got about 60 billion of them. And at the head of each capillary, there's what's called a precapillary orifice. You've got an orifice in your throat. You can open or close it. Well, consciously opening and closing capillaries is not something most people are used to doing. But in fact, when one lives in that sympathetic state, that capillary orifice, which is made up of just small muscle fibers, locked up tight, lock up the head of the capillary, and don't allow the flow of oxygen nutrition into the cell. According to at least one medical doctor, a fellow I respect pretty well, a man named Sarno, he says that a 5% lack of oxygen to a cell means the cell is screaming out in pain. And a lot of the pain in this culture that's so profoundly distributed throughout the culture is a result of these capillary heads locked up, those muscle fibers tight, and that means that the red blood cell can't get into the capillary to deliver oxygen nutrition. When we can soften those, and that's moving from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic state, then the capillary head now is open and more receptive to that red blood cell coming in, delivering oxygen nutrition, and at the same time moving out the acidic wastes of metabolism, the byproduct of metabolism. As there are acid deposits in the cell, and if circulation has been cut back for a long time, then the cells have that buildup of acid. And when you start getting that red blood cell in there, rich with oxygen and nutrition, it picks up once it drops off the oxygen nutrition, it now has room to pick up the acidic carbon dioxide and the acidic wastes from the cell and move that debris out of the cell so that the cell functions more easily. And so that state of relaxation, moving into that parasympathetic state, is important. And to pay attention to your structure, and when you are quote-unquote uptight, recognize what you're doing to yourself is you're cutting off blood flow to the cells of your body. They don't like that. It's not a happy event for them. And that's where the majority of our pain comes from, I would offer. And so just allowing yourself time to relax, to stop, soften, and let loose, even when there are things going on that you say, well, but I have to be uptight over that. Well, my offering is you don't have to be uptight over anything. You can maintain that soft, open flow, that parasympathetic state, and respond from that state, which is a much more empowered state than one where there is a restriction through fear of blood flow and cellular function. And that's all part of the forgiveness process as well. Each time I forgive, I'm going to tend to soften those muscle fibers and open the flow. And when I open the flow, I get to go with the flow. And so that's an important aspect from a physiological point of view. And when they say be holy, they're not saying run around with your hands folded or down on your knees. They're saying pay attention to all aspects of your structure. People who live totally locked up all the time in that frozen sympathetic state find it impossible to release anything because of the restriction of the flow of energy. Stepping into the practice of relaxation, the practice of meditation, the practice of connecting to the active presence of love begins to open the possibilities for new levels and new pathways of flow of energy through the structure. And so that's kind of where Richard's at this point. We'll continue to work with him throughout the rest of the year as we cover the whole book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Again, you can go to our website, download a copy. Let's see, I think we've got it in French and German and Russian and Swedish and Danish. And Swedish we actually don't have the copy online free. The publisher wouldn't let us do that. They wanted to make sure they made whatever money they could from publishing it and restricted us putting it online. But in any event, there's several languages. Thai is something that is being worked on. And Farsi, that was pretty cool. A few years back, we had a woman from Tehran, Iran, who contacted us and had come across the book in English, started doing worksheets, saw her life change, and said, there's nothing like this available in our country, in our language. Can I translate it? And she very, very generously translated it. As well, actually, each of the translations has been done exactly that way. So if you know anybody that speaks any of those languages, let them know the book's available free. They can go to our website, free download, and take the tools and put them to work. And so, Miss Jeannie, we are at about the 1/4 point through the hour.
Minutes.
Do we have anybody in the yes? Do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
We do have two hands up. So the first one is area code 602. You're on the air.
Hello, friends. This is Cecilia.
Well, hi there, young lady. Welcome. Good to hear
My
your voice.
phone. Good to hear you guys, and good. I loved hearing what you were talking about just a minute ago. I'm spending time doing a worksheet in my head while I'm meditating so that I can get into that when I first wake up. This is like a new practice lately, so that I can get into the fullest possibility of who I am in every way, shape, and form, which is just energy, not, yeah. So anyway, and I'm really zoned in on doing that lately, and that was interesting. It feels like synchronicity that you were talking about it, because that's my main focus point lately. And so I hope to see more and more relaxation of my muscles and stuff as I do this. But that's exactly why I'm calling today. I have a couple things that I wanted to share. The first thing was I want you to explain to me. Oh my gosh, it better be here. I want you to. I don't remember where I heard it. I'm sure it was probably a radio.
You cut out there for a second, Cecilia. If you could start that sentence over again.
Okay, so let's put that one first. Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
You can't hear me? You can?
You're good.
I'm postponing trying to get a new phone. This is a landline. This is a huge issue of mine. I know, it's like how can a landline be a huge issue? I read something on one of the Jeannie's descriptions of a radio show just the other day that this lady called in. It was actually the same day I had called in, but she was before me. And she has electromagnetic sensitivities, and I was reading Jeannie's notes, and she said, and according to Jeannie's notes, according to what I read and saw, was that your question to her was, what happened in your life that caused you to be sensitive, or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, is that it. Yes? And I'm thinking to myself, is that why I'm so obsessed about having everything EMF free? I mean, my paint is toxic free. I have a landline with a cord, okay? So my phone isn't working right, and I want to find the least EMF-free phone I can find, and I'm thinking to myself, that's probably not the issue after I read what Jeannie said the other day. I mean,
probably
what Jeannie
not.
wrote. Huh?
Probably not. And if you're sensitive, it's like it's not an either or. If you recognize that you're sensitive and that there are reasons why you're sensitive and you work around cleaning up what that sensitivity is about, you can still pay attention to EMFs and how you expose yourself. Both are reasonable to do.
Both are reasonable to do. I don't notice any sensitivity. But I live so far out in my choices. Like I've been 100% raw food vegan for 26 years. Do you think there's a lifestyle for that on this planet? No. And as a matter of fact, I had a Zoom meeting with the Essene Church of Christ on Sunday, and the head of the church there was getting back into what he had a conversation with me on the phone when I first got the Essene Bible in last April, yes. So, and I was sharing, I thought he would be so excited that I'm a raw food vegan, and he said, Cecilia, you're not meant in this world to be a raw food vegan. You're meant to be a vegetarian because you need and not even a vegan. I mean, they're all very admirable qualities because of the compassion that people that are vegan and raw vegans have. They don't want to harm anything, but what you don't understand.
Your voice cut out at what you don't understand. Your voice cut out at what you don't understand. If you could just pick it up from your voice cut out where you said you don't understand, this person saying to you.
He said, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Go.
Can you hear me now? Yes?
Go for it.
Oh, it's just to hold the cord in. That's how much. I won't go by.
It sounds like you got a loose cord.
Okay. Anyway, he said this world, the energies don't support being a raw food vegan. There's a lot of energies that you can't function without. Can you hear me?
We're listening. I'll let you know if you cut out.
Okay, thanks. The energies in this world.
And you just cut out again. The energies in this world. You sound like you've got a cord that's loose, and if you're not in the right position, it doesn't stay connected.
That's true. Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, the energies in this world, there's a lot of disintegrative energies, he said, that don't support you being a raw vegan. He said, I'm saying this from compassion. If you never want to call again, he said, I just wanted to share with you. He had lost his ability to walk being a raw food vegan. In the raw food vegan community, the so-called experts that are raw food vegan, they're all suicidal. Anxiety is up the charts. And I shouldn't say they're all suicidal, but it's very dangerous, and a lot of people from animal products, not supposedly dairy and eggs that are well cared for animals, so there's no harm to the animals. Okay, so lately I just began eating that up is because I've lived so far out to try to be as pure and close to my source as I can, but I've learned that's not true. That being that far out is not healthy. So I'm just saying, with the EMF free stuff and all, that's just another thing that's not. It's too far out, and I get too far out, and I'm not balanced. I'm just saying maybe it's not true.
I'd support you getting back into balance.
And
whatever
maybe
balance
these EMF
is for you.
things are not dangerous, that I have in my head,
Well, I support you going for the balance as you best understand it, and if you're off base, your structure will let you know.
Well, okay. The other thing has got to do with frequencies. It's something I heard on this show, another show, and I can't find where it is. Maybe you guys can direct me to it. There was something, and I wrote it down as clear as I could get. You said the mind works through resonance, and in my voice. Actually,
correct.
Actually, I never spoke a word. We never spoke a word. We call this thing voice box. It actually. Can you please?
Okay, you're cutting out fairly regularly, Cecilia. So I don't know if you can hear me clearly or not. I think what I got from you was that you'd like to know more about this idea that I expressed about we don't speak words, but rather it's all about frequency. Was that your question?
Yes.
Okay. So when I recognize that, first of all, there are a thing called sound waves, but there's no sound. They're simply the vibrating of molecules of air when I cause this little flap in my throat to vibrate. And, I can say a particular word like, you've heard me probably talk about, imagine the person who's from Russia or France or wherever that doesn't speak English that wants to come to a workshop, and you speak their language, and I ask you if you will host them, and you do, and we have a wonderful week together, and at the end of the week, I ask you, since I don't speak this person's language, to explain to them that I think they're really cool. Now, what fires in your brain cells, you turn around to this person, you say that Michael thinks that you've got a low body temperature. Did I speak the words, you've got a low body temperature? Did I speak anything about body temperature? No, but your brain cells listened, and the frequency that came out of my voice box resonated brain cells for body temperature, where I was speaking about a state of my consideration of this person's sweetness or well-being or presence. And so each of us listens according to the frequencies that fire within our brain cell structure. And we're not really listening to words. What's actually happening is this little flap of skin is moving. There's actually, if you go on YouTube, there's a cool video, and I think it's Mick Jagger, that they actually put a camera down his throat. He's a rock and roll singer, and it's pretty awesome to watch his voice box, what produces what we call sound, as he gets this little flap of skin moving in his throat. And all it does is move air molecules. Our brain makes up the sounds and the meanings according to the content of our brain cell structure for everything that we think we hear. Somebody heard me say that I had a low body temperature, but what I said is, I think he's a really nice guy. I used the idiom, he's cool. And so when we start to take responsibility for our listening, and if our listening is based in hostility or fear, that's an appropriate place to move in the direction of forgiveness and start to remove the content from our minds based in hostility or fear, whatever it's about. Does that kind of get to a little more understanding of what you were asking about?
Yes, it's clearer.
Good.
Yes.
Awesome.
So if there isn't like a rush for somebody else to get on there, I have a worksheet issue that I would need a little bit of help because it's also very out there.
Give us your question.
Seven dogs. I rescue them off the.
Okay, you as soon as you started into that conversation, your voice cut out again. It's really hard to keep up with the specifics of what you're saying, Cecilia, because it's cutting out quite regularly.
Do you want me to call another time with this?
Well, we can try it. Try to keep it going, but your earlier conversation, I was able to pick up enough pieces of it, I think, to piece it together, and you affirmed that I had. But you're cutting out about maybe every 10th word. You're cutting out 2 or 3 or 4 words and then coming back, and it's really hard to keep up. So maybe if we could get a better connection, we could be more precise in supporting you.
Yes, it's inside the phone. I need to buy a phone, and I haven't done it yet. And I wanted to get on these shows so bad, and it might not be very helpful for anybody listening.
Okay, well, we're here, and maybe you can, phones are pretty inexpensive these days. You can go to, one of these big box stores and buy a new landline for $10 or $15, and it'll probably take care of that loose cord issue that you got, and we can probably have a clearer conversation.
I'll do that. That's that's the considerate thing of me to do. So I appreciate you guys. All right, bye.
Awesome. Blessings. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, our next caller is 610. You are on the air. Is it Susan?
Hi. Yep, it is. Quick question, Michael. When you were reading the discussion with Richard, you said something about this doesn't change the past or anything that happened. It changes your relationship to it or your feelings toward it. Do you remember that section?
Right. Yes.
Perception. And yet when you talk about doing the forgiveness work, you say that we are affecting future generations and past generations. You're actually doing a lot of healing. So can you explain? Okay. So I didn't understand what you said in the writing then in your book.
Okay. Well, here would be my take. Let's imagine that yesterday afternoon we had somebody who did a video of a conversation that 2 people had where there was a huge conflict and a lot of rage expressed.
Oh, yeah.
And today, each of those persons sits down and does a responsibility communication exercise and engages in some forgiveness, and the rage that each of them was feeling and expressing toward the other, they're able to soften, they're able to let loose of, and change the energetic patterns in themselves of rage. If we went back and looked at the tape from yesterday, it hasn't changed. So in that sense, the past has remained the same. However, now that I stand freed, having forgiven the rage in my mind, I've changed the energetic dynamics of number one, things going on in my physiology. Number two, I've opened and shifted the energy around that issue for anybody that's in my bloodline that has that issue, because I'm one person in that field of energy that I call my genetic system that has a different frequency around whatever that issue is than anybody's ever had before. And so I start to introduce a change to those who, originated that issue and were never able to work through it, and those who, because that energy is in our genetic stream, in the future would have responded out of that kind of rage. By me shifting it, I've opened the energy window for that to change for everybody in the bloodline. That would be my take. So is the pattern that happened in the past still there? Or, well, obviously not still there in the sense that we would think of it, but I haven't changed the mechanics of what happened in the past. I've changed the energy that I hold about it, and therefore open new possibilities for me and everybody else.
Yeah, got it. Thanks. That helps a lot.
Does that fit with where you're going with that?
Yeah, that answers the question. Good. Second question, you mentioned Sarno, and then you mentioned the capillaries and how if a cell is lacking in a certain amount of oxygen, that it really does damage. And then you said the avicen is a kind of healing machine, because a forgiveness work machine. The avicen is like physical forgiveness work.
Yes.
Okay.
That's my take.
Question. Yeah. Of course, I mean, you're not saying, okay, stick your hand in an avicen and you never have to do the work.
Oh, no, not in a million years. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Some of us like me who would like to get the quick fix. Okay.
I'm saying if you want to be holy, incorporate everything. I mean, if you're eating food that's minerally deficient, you're going to have trouble working through forgiveness. Because you go out and get the perfect mineralized diet doesn't mean you don't do forgiveness work still. You still want to be holy. You still want to work with everything you've got on every level to produce the result that you're after. And where the avicen comes in, where I see it as being a form of physical forgiveness, is that it opens the circulation in a way that allows the debris in the cell to be removed. I had a session that I was doing a few months back, and I usually use it in the morning with my meditation time, and I'm in that quiet space, and all of a sudden I get this visualization served up to me. We've talked in the intensive and such about different ways of perceiving them through our 5 physical senses, and I literally had this visual that arose in me of this little guy with a hammer and a chisel going into my cells and chiseling away at those acidic wastes. And,
wonderful.
When you think of forgiveness as removal, that's exactly what I was able to visualize. It was just kind of something that spontaneously came up, and I believe it's an accurate representation of what is happening. As that oxygen nutrition goes in, it starts chipping away at the acidic waste. In the system medicine that I'm trained in, naturopathy, the whole basis of every disease is congestion. And so if there isn't a proper flow, you think about, we've got a stream, and the stream's flowing rapidly and moving well, and, everything's clean and clear around it. But if we end up with a tree falling and branches in the river that restrict the flow in the river, all of a sudden the water slows down, the debris starts to build up, leaves get caught in it, mud gets caught in it. All of a sudden you've got different kinds of bacteria and organisms starting to grow, mosses and things like that, that otherwise would not be in that stream were the flow to be as it was designed to be. But when you get that restriction happening, so when you don't get a proper flow of oxygen nutrition into a cell, there are byproducts of metabolism acidic waste and carbon dioxide in particular, which is an acidic gas. And what happens with fluids when there's acid buildup in them is those fluids don't hold or carry oxygen well. It actually drives oxygen out. And so what I'm seeing when I spoke about, I see the avacyn as being a physical form of forgiveness, perhaps would be more accurate to say as a physical assist to forgiveness, because it's helping to restore the flow of energy, oxygen, nutrition to the cell, and the removal of the waste from the cell, which allows it to go back to a full and proper flow. And in that sense, removing the debris. And oftentimes the debris is a result of emotional toxicity. And so I've also been watching people who've been using it on a regular basis, starting to soften their emotional attitudes and their traumatic outlooks on life and moving into a more peaceful and connected space.
Wonderful. That visualization
awesome.
is a great idea. It might even be a little extra thing in the manual to visualize that. The reason I say that is I have a brother-in-law who was diagnosed with a cancer. He was only in his early 30s. This was many, many years ago. And It looked pretty grim for him. And he was a meditator and he was a truth seeker and he did all the right, he changed his diet drastically. And he kept up even a better meditation, but he also visualized little Pac-Mans, like little Pac-Mans, through his system, chewing up any suspicious-looking cancer cells. And one day I said to him, "So what do you see in there? What are you doing?" And he said, "Actually, I haven't seen a single cancer cell," which also shows you that he had a visual of his own health in there, that there wasn't even one cancer cell for a Pac-Man to eat. But he continued the meditation. He is now 87 years old and, and vigorous. It's just amazing.
Well, you go all the way back into the ancient Aramaic and it says, without vision, my people perish. Vision is an energy. Yeah. And the ability to visualize, when you hear the power that resides within you, Yeshua talks about, the Father within me does the works. Of myself I do nothing. If of myself I do nothing, and the Father within me, the creative force within me, does the work, I obviously have to give instructions as to what I want. And that's what he said is ask and you'll receive it. And there are many ways of asking. We can ask with our words. We can ask with our imagination. We can ask with our visualization. And we're giving instructions to that power. And that power will carry out our instructions, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So upgrade all of it, and things move forward.
Boy, oh boy, the brain is exploding. So, okay. When Jesus said,
"Well, let's cancel that thought." How about opening to higher ideas?
Okay.
We don't want to give that visualization to the power.
All right. When Jesus said, "When you do this unto the least of these, you do so unto me," I always pictured, and of course it's right to think of the least being our cultural view of people who are homeless and poor and sick and dirty and all the other things. But when he said, if you do it, meaning the kindness, the care, if you do it to them, you're doing it to me. And what I learned partly in this after still point thing in the middle of the night, he says, who do you think me is? It is the me with a capital M, which is the self, which is me, myself. I mean, so all of a sudden, holy crap, it came around to just this feeling that I get this. And it's what you say, you get the original, you have the original and they get the carbon copy and all that. It all comes back to us. And this was blowing my mind for a couple of days.
Yes.
But the other question I have is, I have a friend who called me with extreme excitement. I think I've mentioned her before and the work before. She says, I want to give you a link to biomagnetism, and I've taken a course in it, and I can move magnets around on a diagram of you on my kitchen table, and I will heal you of various things. What do you want? And I said, get rid of my tinnitus, take away anxiety, let's go. And so I paid her,
Fix the wrist.
for 3. What?
Fix the wrist.
I didn't understand.
I was just saying another request of her would be to fix your wrist.
Oh, yeah.
Get the energy patterns in your wrist squared away.
Oh, that's been good. It's been my shoulder, but Michael, that's better. That's gotten a lot better. This work, and I went to a doctor, and he said, there's a lot of different things going on in here, but one of them is very obviously easily helped, maybe temporarily, permanently, is your bursa is terribly inflamed. He said a shot of cortisone or something in there. I don't even know what it was. I said, sure. And I said, I don't want to do this on a regular basis. And he said, I get it, but I think this would really help. Well, it's been several months now, and it's been much better. So I'm sort of all of the above person. I'll take the vitamin and I'll eat the pill and whatever it is. But with my friend, she says, I can do this for you. And my thought is, well, what about my worksheets? And I said that to her, and she said, you won't need to do them. And I thought, nope, this is where I get off the boat here. I think I have to do them still. But is that just a belief? I mean, if I really trusted her that she could move those magnets and I wouldn't have to do the worksheet, you'd lose a customer. But, I don't know, Michael. It's just a question. It's the quick fix.
Well, it would be okay to lose a customer. I'd be happy to do that for every person that decides to shift into being and acquire the skills of being in full expression in their forms. I'd be delighted to have them move on from, quote unquote, being a customer. However, if I leave my well-being to someone else, then the skills that I am here to develop well-being through are going to be missed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, to me, that request, I mean, if somebody's out there that's got an energetic process they're able to do, and it's called radionics, there's a whole science of radionics. I've actually addressed radionics conferences in the past, and it's energy medicine. But, it's like, if I choose, let's say that I decide I'm going to, in 2028, enter the Olympics, and I'm going to win the World Weightlifting Championship. And I go to my brother and I say, Kerry, in 2028, I'm going to win the World Championship weightlifting. And what I'd like you to do is start today and go into the gym every day between now and the date of those Olympics and lift weights for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
I am not very likely to win the weightlifting championship. I mean, there might be some type of magic transfer that could happen, and it might happen, but I think I'm going to have to go into the gym myself and build some muscle to do that. And I think that the skills that we develop by working through what we have to work through are important. And yes, am I willing and receptive for every bit of help I can get from my friends? Absolutely. But to just be able to say, and actually Jeannie and I had dinner with a couple. This goes back several years ago. I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. There was a couple who were at a workshop, and actually he was the one who opened the door for me to speak at this particular facility. And afterwards, we went out for dinner, and we were talking about critical mass and energy and all of that. And his girlfriend was really gung-ho. I mean, she was going to do it and do her work. And he literally sat there after we had dinner. He literally sat there and said, well, and he was serious. I mean, this guy was really, truly serious. He said, this is really cool, this critical mass thing. I think I'll just wait and let her do it.
Mhm.
And he was serious. So I was like, well, okay, but, I think if I'm going to win the gym competition, I better go into the gym.
Oh, Michael. Well, there's a beautiful Hindu story. A young woman is getting married, and she says to her teacher, my husband isn't on board with any of this. And he said, don't worry, he's with you, and you will do it for him. So I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying there is a story about being connected so closely to somebody who's doing the work. You're just going to ride in on their coattails. And I'm hoping a certain amount of that is true. Yeah.
Well, certainly critical mass is something that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm ever going to win the 2028 Olympics, I'm going to have to go into the gym.
Right. Yeah. So, Michael, one more quick question.
Go for it.
Okay, go ahead. What is the difference between hypocrisy? I mean, we're choosing to be an active space of love.
Right.
There are times when I'm not functioning as love, but I can choose to put it on. I can choose to treat someone more caringly than I feel like treating them. But I know it's the right thing to do, and I hope I'll catch up with myself.
Yes.
And they, if they're at all intuitive, may be smelling a small rat, because they'll be able to tell that on some level I'm not sincere, even though my ultimate goal is sincere. So I've been fussing with this idea of hypocrisy and other people's sensitivity to my being, putting on the clothes before I'm dressed or something.
Well, my take on that one would be that, I've never met anybody who is in process, live and doing their work, and I include myself here, who's not a hypocrite. I am a hypocrite. I speak about things that I have been able to visualize and sense and have been taught that my carbon-based memory can't carry through with yet. Okay. And yes, sometimes I fake it till I make it. And that's part of being in process. If I arrive, I begin to rot. You're ripe, you rot. And so my take is that and who knows how far and broad this goes. The ancient scriptures talk about the mind of man is not yet conceived of what lies in store. Like, we don't have a clue yet. And I suspect that if we looked at the actuality of the creation, we're kind of like an ant looking at the Taj Mahal, trying to comprehend the Taj Mahal and saying, well, I want to get to the point where I can build the Taj Mahal. Well, okay, there are going to be a lot of skills to be developed, and as I'm efforting the development of those skills, I'm probably not going to have perfected them yet, but I'm in the process. And so my take is, and for me, and I hope this is true for me until at least I get to whatever that ultimate is, and I don't even know what that is at this point, but I hope that my teaching is always a step ahead of me. And so I hope to always be a hypocrite, always knowing that, well, there's another step I could take, that I could be one step better than where I am now, and I just learned what that is, and I don't have the skill yet. I'm not going to have it till tomorrow. I'm going to have to put it into practice. So I'm not going to have it till tomorrow. And then when I reach that tomorrow, my vision's going to go one more step. Einstein talked about, I forget exactly how he said it, but he talked basically about saying that the theory you have about a thing determines what you can observe. And so when I understand things at one level, I can see, just over the hill there to, there's the next level. There's what's possible. But I'm not going to know what's visible from the top of that hill until I get there. And as far as I know so far, it's always been a step ahead of me. And so to me,
great.
I'm okay with being a hypocrite. I'm okay with it, and knowing that I'm going to do the best I can. And sometimes I don't even do the best I can, and that's my place. That's more of my forgiveness work to do.
Maybe the difference is that you know you're a hypocrite.
Well, that could be. I think that the difference, maybe what you're talking about really is deception. If I know I'm not there, but I'm efforting being there, and I'm making my best stand for it, I'm doing the best I can, and yes, I spoke this, but I wasn't able to do it perfectly, that makes me a hypocrite. But if I say to somebody, look at what I'm speaking, and I do this perfectly all the time, then it's the deception, perhaps, that you're talking about.
I wasn't, this is all nonverbal between somebody that I might be uncomfortable with, and yet I'm choosing to treat them kindly and holding them in a space, even though the wish to strangle them is in my mind somewhere. Nice.
My forgiveness work is there, ready to be done.
I know. Okay, thanks. That's a good answer. I appreciate it.
And I join you and support you in letting go of that old self that wants to strangle.
Oh, I'm working on that too.
I know you are.
That's
I know
my
you are, and it's
miserable.
fun to play with you. We appreciate you.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. Thanks.
Cool.
You too.
Well, any other thoughts on the plate for you today?
Nope.
Okay. Well, you have a blessed one. Give Tim a hug for us.
I will. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, Miss Jeannie, we've got about 8 or 9 minutes left, so
do we
have anybody out there? All right. Let's say hello.
Area code 808. You're on the air.
Hello. Hello
hey
there,
Miss
everyone.
Roma. Welcome. Aloha.
Aloha. I would like to investigate the abyssin, and I apparently don't know how to spell it because I can't get it up on the. I can't find it on the internet. How do you spell the word?
I'll send you some links, so you don't even have to search.
But how, for the sake of anyone else, how is the word spelled?
Avacen. It's interesting. I just as I finished that conversation, I switched over to my text to see if anybody was texting me anything for the radio show, and a fellow who actually introduced, or was actually one step above the person who introduced me, had just sent me a text saying, "Hey, I'm getting a new healing experience with the Avacen, less affected, emotionally smoother emotions, and less bodily discomfort." So someone who's just acknowledging the emotional shifts that he's experienced from it, someone who I know had been in quite a bit of pain in the past. So he's rocking forward with it. It's powerful when you get something that gets in there and starts moving through all the cracks and crevices that have been blocked up by emotions or toxic food or toxic thinking, whatever's gone on. It's pretty powerful.
Well, I'm looking forward to. Well, I'm going to use my money. How much
Say
do
that
those
again?
things? How much do they cost? How expensive?
The Avacen device, it sells retail for $4,000. It's a Class 2 medical device, full blown. It's the real deal. And actually, at this point, we carry them, we distribute them, and I have a code available that takes $1,000 off of that retail price.
Oh.
But it's a pretty amazing device. And basically, what it is, it's about the size of a bread box. And yeah, you plug it in, and when you turn it on, there's a little pad inside of the bread box, so to speak, that you put the palm of your hand on. You wear a mitt on your hand, a plastic mitt, and there's a plastic cuff so that when you insert your hand inside of it, this cuff inflates around your wrist, kind of like a blood pressure cuff, only much softer than a blood pressure cuff. So it creates a seal there, and then there's a small compressor that creates a vacuum around your hand. Your hand is a heat exchanger. You know, if you think about times when you've gotten, maybe emotionally flushed or overheated, what happens? Your palms sweat. Why do your palms sweat? Well, there's actually a radiator in the palm of the hand for dumping heat when you want to get rid of heat, when the body's getting overheated. It's like, the control system. Or it also will absorb heat when the body's cold. If you're cold, what does everybody naturally do when they get cold? They rub their hands together. What does that do? It creates friction. There's a heat exchanger there. The friction creates heat. The heat is absorbed to the body, and literally the whole body starts to warm up by rubbing the hands because of that heat exchanger. Now, if you stick your hand in a bucket of hot water, your body will start to absorb that heat through the heat exchanger. And when it's absorbed all that it needs to come to what they call normothermia, the heat exchanger shuts down. And so what the Avicen does is when you seal around the wrist and create a vacuum, that vacuum draws on the hand and causes the blood vessels to expand. It distends the blood vessels so they stay open. And then with your hand on this heated plate, the Avicen pours heat directly into the blood. When blood leaves the hand, it takes about 3 minutes to circulate throughout the whole body and get back to your hand. Once the blood has circulated 3 times, so in a period of about 10 minutes, you've raised the temperature of the blood in your whole body by a full 1 degree. And that changes everything. First of all, I was talking earlier about that precapillary orifice, the muscle fibers at the head of the capillary. We've got about 60 billion capillaries, and if we live in an uptight world, then those muscle fibers are tight, and therefore, just like if you tighten your throat, the orifice is closed, you can't swallow. Well, the capillary can't absorb the red blood cell, can't take it in and get its share of oxygen nutrition to take to the cells. So the first thing that happens when you pour warm blood over a muscle fiber, the muscle fiber relaxes. There are 2 medical claims that the FDA allows the Avicen company to make for their machine, like medical claims. You'll oftentimes hear that, well, this is no medical claim. Well, here's a medical claim. It's allowed by the FDA because they've approved of it as a Class 2 medical device, is it causes muscle relaxation. So when you get the muscle fibers around the head of those 60 billion capillaries softening and opening, now there's more room for the red blood cell to get into the capillary so it can be delivered to the cell, drop off the oxygen, drop off the nutrition, pick up the carbon dioxide and the acidic waste, and move them out of the cell. So that's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens is there's a thing they call erythrocyte deformability. Big words. Erythrocyte just means red blood cell, and deformability means it can bend. The red blood cell itself is actually larger than the opening in the capillary, even when the capillary is wide open. The red blood cell is designed to be able to flex or bend itself so that it can get into that capillary opening. So when that happens, or when the blood is warmed, the red blood cell is now, it improves in its ability to flex, can get into the cell. The third thing that happens is once the blood temperature gets up by 1 degree, the brain says, too much heat, we got to start dumping this. And the periphery circulation is opened to dump that heat, which means now the capillaries are opened on still another level to deliver that oxygen nutrition. And the muscle fibers throughout the whole structure begin to relax. And as that happens, all of a sudden you've got red blood cells with oxygen nutrition where they've not been seen for perhaps for years in any quantity, and the release of what doesn't belong changes everything. And we're down to the last few seconds, so I'm going to have to call that to a halt, that conversation. Well, we don't have time. It's going to cut us off. But let's pick that up at the beginning of Monday's show, and we'll finish the conversation about it.
Okay.
Okay?
Good. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Send
me the link.
Have a blessed one. Okay, I'll do it. Blessings.